Man, there was a long time I didn't feel so frustrated playing poker. I'm all in. What's up everybody? Back to a late night session here at Hard Rock Hollywood. It's a Saturday evening, the casino is packed, full of people who want to party, but that's where my party is. The poker room is packed as usual. I wait for almost an hour until I finally get a seat. Welcome to the Poker Profit channel, the first poker vlog created to help you becoming a better poker player. I buy in for 800, first hand I get 10 jack suited from the low jack. I raise to 25, small blind and big blind call, so 3 players see the flop. The flop is a great one, queen 5-10 with 2 diamonds. I got a middle pair and jack high flush draw. They check to me. I'm gonna bet small here, trying not to scare them away. I bet 30, small blind call, big blind folds, we're heads up. The turn is a queen, which is a good one in my opinion, because there are less chances of him having a queen himself. He checks again. And here I believe is a complex spot, because even though there are 2 flush draws that I could extract value by betting, I have a flush draw myself, and if I bet here, I might make all the hands that are worse than mine to fold, besides the flush draws. And if I decide to bet here, I have to be willing to call in case he check raises. So I think either checking or betting are fine plays, but I decided to bet 55. He calls pretty fast, and then the river comes another 5, and now he leads out for 185. And when he leads after calling flop and turn, I don't think he's bluffing here, and I'm only beating bluffs in this spot, so I decided to fold. And later on he says he has ace-10, which makes sense. Okay, unfortunately I'm having the same issue as I had before at Hard Rock. People are demanding me to stop recording. I changed seat to try to go to a spot where people are not gonna bother me. One of the first hands in this seat, I get pocket queens on the big blind, 5 players limp, small blind completes. The game is deep and I decided to raise to 50, and unfortunately everybody folds. Changing seats didn't change the situation. Staff were demanding me to stop recording, and when that happened, one of the dealers advised me to talk to Lex, who was in the room. The dealer messaged Lex, and Lex came to the table. He asked me how did I get caught, and gave me some tips about how to record without calling attention to myself, because he said that took a long time for him to get footage authorization, and that if I was gonna stay in Florida only for about 2 weeks more, I wouldn't have enough time for them to let me record it. I appreciate Lex's help. Some people, including Lex, advised me to go to Coconut Creek, that was 30 minutes from Hard Rock, and this is what I did. Lost $58 in a little more than 2 hours of session. Alright guys, we're finally here at the Coconut Creek. I just spoke to Lexo Poker. He gave me some tips to film it without calling attention to myself. I'm gonna definitely try to use it here. Shout out for Lexo. Thank you for helping me, man. If you don't follow him, I advise you to follow. He's a very good player, has a great vlog, and check it out, that is worth your time. We arrive at the Coconut Creek. Just by talking to the staff, I already felt like they treat players better than the staff at Hard Rock. I buy in for 800. First hand I'm in the big blind, and I see pocket jacks, cutoff raises to 20, button calls, and here 95% of the times I'm just gonna 3-bet. I decided just to call here mostly to be tricky, so I call and 3 players see the flop. The flop is a great one, 3-4 jack, rainbow. I check, hoping to check raise if someone bets, but everybody checks. Turns an ace, I check again. There's a big chance someone has the ace or is gonna represent the ace after I check, but again, it's not what happens. The river is a 10, I'm not gonna check anymore. I bet $40. Then the cutoff re-raises to 135. King Queen is good. I call and he shows King Queen, making a straight in the river and winning the hand. I buy in for 200 more. Next hand I'm in the big blind again, 2 limpers and small blind completes, and I see Jack Deuce offsuit. Both of the limpers were in late position, so I think by being aggressive here, most of the times I'm gonna win the hand. So I decide to raise to 35, only the button calls, we're heads up. The flop comes ace 3-7 with 2 diamonds. I have many aces in my range, so I'm gonna bet here. I bet 35, he calls, turns a deuce, and I'm gonna keep up with the plan of being aggressive. In case he calls, at least I have some showdown value with the bottom pair of deuces. But I want him to fold here. I bet 115. And finally he decides to fold. Next hand I have King Jack on the small blind. Under the gun raises to 25 and button calls. And I decide to open fold here, because I don't think this hand is good enough for me to call from the small blind. And I'm not feeling like 3-betting is a good option right now. Next hand I have pocket sixes on the button. Under the gun straddles to 10. Two players call. I raise to 60 in position. Only the straddler calls. He's an older man who seems like a rag, so I don't think his range is wide here. The flop is a pretty bad one. Queen Jack 7, rainbow. He checks to me. I decide to check back here. Turn comes a queen. He leads out to 130 and I just fold. Next hand I'm in the hijack with Queen Jack offsuit. Button straddles to 10. Low Jack calls and I decide to raise to 50. Button calls. He's the same player from last hand. Limper calls as well, so 3 players see the flop. Limper checks in the dark, and the flop comes ace 5-8 with 2 hearts. I have many aces in my range. I bet $80. Button does a pretty weird thing before calling. I think he knows pretty well what he did, and he's just angle shooting me here. But he calls. Low Jack folds. We're heads up. The turn is a 4, and here I don't think is the best spot to continue betting. There are 2 flush draws in the board, and it was probably a good time to give up on the hand. But if I decide to bet here, I gotta bet big, because otherwise he's gonna call too much, and I will have to be willing to bet again in the river. Effective stack is 730. I bet 230, leaving 500 behind. When I bet here, depending on the card in the river, I might be willing to shove. He calls, and then the river comes a 7 of hearts, which is a horrible card for me. On the turn, I could be representing ace king and ace queen, aces as well, but with this river, all of those hands are gonna tend to check. So I'm not gonna be telling a good story here if I shove. I decide to check. He checks back, I show the queen high, and he shows 8-9 of diamonds. I buy in for 500 more, losing almost $600. Next hand I'm in the big blind, with Queen 9 suited, 4 limpers, small blind completes. I decided to raise here and punish the limpers.
60.
But I was kind of impatient. I think just checking is a better option, but raising is not bad as well. I raise to 60, low jack calls. I feel like he is targeting me, and that's fine. I hope he thinks I'm a bad player, so I can take advantage of that. The flop is not good for my range. Tough spot for me here, but I decide to keep betting to 75. He calls, turn is another 8, effective stack is 800, and I don't want to give up this hand, so I decide to bet an amount that puts a lot of pressure on him. I bet 275 and he folds. I change seats for a table that seems to be pretty good. After a few orbits card dead, I see this king queen offsuit from the low jack. Middle position limps. I raise to 25 in position. Only the limper calls. We're heads up. The flop comes ace high with 2 spades. He leads out to 40, but I am the one who has range advantage here. I have all the ace king, ace queen, ace jack. Also, I have the king of spades, which is an important card, because in case a spade comes in the turn, I block the nuts, and I have the nut flush draw. So due to all of those reasons, I decide to represent a good hand here. With ace king and ace queen, I could raise here, so that's what I do.
Raise 100.
Effective stack is 600, and I raise to 100. He calls, turn is a blank, a deuce of clubs. He checks to me, and now I'm gonna keep putting pressure here. He has around 500 in his stack. I bet 190, and then, after thinking for a while, he goes all in for $500, and of course I'm gonna fold here. And then he shows deuce 3 offsuit. I just loved to see that, because if he limp calls with deuce 3 offsuit from the middle position, there's a lot of money to be made from this guy. Next hand I have pocket 5s, under the gun limps, cutoff raises to 30, I call from the button, and limper calls as well. The flop comes deuce 3-5 with 2 diamonds, great spot for me here. I have top set, they check to me, and I bet $50, they both call. I'm hoping to see a blank in the turn, which is not what happens. Turn is a pretty bad one. A 7 of diamonds, and now the under the gun leads out to $130. He's representing a flush here, but he was kind of crazy. There's no chance I'm gonna fold just yet. Cut off calls as well, which now I'm pretty sure I'm behind from some one of them, but I have to call 130 to reach out 10 outs for a full house, so it's a clear call here for me. I call. I miss the river. He bets 300. If the cutoff folds here, I might decide to call, but it's not what happens. Cutoff calls, and I don't think it's a good option to call after the cutoff calls. She was a woman who was a rag. I know that because I spoke to her a little bit, and she told me she was a pro, so I fold. He shows ace-jack with the ace of diamonds. He was bluffing, and she shows sevens, hitting her set in the turn. I couldn't make footage from the next hand because my cell phone battery died and I was charging it, but I get pocket deuces from the small blind, the same whale from the ace-jack offsuit limps, then a funny dude raises to 25, hijack folds, fish from the cutoff calls, woman in my right calls as well, so I decide to call with pocket deuces here from the small blind, big blind folds, and then the whale decides to limp raise to 125, low jack, cutoff, and button calls, and then the action gets to me. I have to call 100 for a pot that has 530, and I know I'm gonna hit my set 1 every 8 times, but I said, you know what? There are gonna be some times that I'm gonna call, hit my set, and someone has a bigger set than mine. So I'm gonna have patience, fold this hand, and wait for a better spot. That's what I do, and the flop comes deuce, 3, 10. You can imagine how much that hurts. But to make it even worse, whale bets $200, then funny guy raises to $400, fish calls, button folds, and if I was here with the deuces, I would go all in and everybody would call. So I'm really mad right now, but I'm hoping someone to have a set of 3s or set of 10s here. Whale calls, the turn comes an ace, whale checks, funny guy bets 600, fish goes all in, whale calls, and now I'm thinking there's a big chance someone has a better hand than I do, and I'm hoping this to be a reality, otherwise I'm gonna be really pissed. Funny guy calls, river is an ace, now there is an even bigger chance I'm behind, cause man, what the fuck? Raise, re-raise, re-raise, someone has to have a full house here, right? But then the limp raiser has queen jack suited, the funny guy has 10 jack offsuit, and the fish has ace 4 offsuit. He had a gut shot in the flop, made trips, and took out a huge pot. You can imagine how mad I am right now, cause if I called that pre-flop, I would end up having a $2,200 pot. But I'm not gonna give up. I buy in for 200 more, cause the guy in my right were just full of chips. But after thinking for a while, I was just so mad, guys. So mad that I didn't feel it was a good time to play. I stacked my chips and absorbed this loss of $1,298 in 2 hours and 43 minutes. Man, there was a long time I didn't feel so frustrated playing poker. Got called out in Hollywood, in Hard Rock Tampa in Hollywood. Then I come here and then I get this horrible session. Oh my god, man. That set of deuces that I would have made would get all my money back. And when I make a set, someone else makes a bigger set. There was a long time I didn't feel so frustrated, guys. Like, I'm really mad right now. Right now it's 12 a.m. of a Saturday, so it's a great time to play poker, but I just don't have the head. I'm just mad right now, guys, and one advice I give you is don't play when you're like this, and I'm like this right now, so I'm not gonna play. So that's it for this episode. Hope next days we improve, and see you next time. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe to the channel. The mission of this channel is helping you become a better poker player. I hope I'm achieving that goal, and see you next time.